Oh. Uh-oh. How did I get this so wrong? It says I'm streaming. Ooh, did I get a little notification? Oh, there I am. Excellent. All right. Hello, everybody. This is John from Incendium RPGs, and welcome to my first YouTube live stream. I've done a little bit on Twitch. This is a little bit of a different setup, so I'm going to try to do this as best I can. First, is all the sound coming through correctly? Yes, it is. I gotta turn up the volume. Ooh, good catch. The volume of my mic here. How's that? How's that volume? Oh, it was you. Oh no, now I'm gonna be too loud. Yikes. All right, there we go. Okay. Is my sound okay, Ian? I see that you are in the old chatteroony. I think the answer is yes. So, welcome to my first live stream, everybody. Today I'm going to be going over the new 1D&D Unearthed Arcana released today for Druid and Paladin. This is going to be a, live reaction review. I haven't actually seen the Unearthed Arcana material yet. Now, for those of you who have been following this channel recently, I know that the fact that we're actually doing this live review and we're covering 1D&D content may be a little bit like, what? I released one video in the middle of the OGL drama, basically saying I'm like mom level disappointed with Wizards of the Coast and their decisions and everything. I released a follow-up video that was a little more hopeful after we got the news that the SRD 5.1 was moved to Creative Commons, in order to say, like, hey, I still don't want to really support Wizards of the Coast, and I'm not planning on covering 1D&D unless people want that. And we've gotten enough interest in covering 1D&D that it's worth doing. By the way, I have lots of notes before I even get into the thing, so buckle up. So, the reason that I wanted to do this kind of format, first of all, is for, a selfish reason. The 1D&D material that we put out so far on the YouTube channel was some of our lowest rated content. It didn't get a lot of engagement. It did get me in touch with Jackson from True Sight D&D. Shout out to his channel. You should go check it out. But for the most part, it wasn't really... It was a lot more work than a regular YouTube video, and a lot less return. So I was already questioning whether this kind of thing was worth doing to begin with. But the fact that I can just do this live and just kind of riff and just kind of go off actually makes it easier to review it. So I figured it's a little less effort on our end from a production standpoint. And we would probably still honestly get about the same amount of engagement with it. But the other thing that, really led to a lot of my decision making was the whole, is this supporting Wizards of the Coast? In the middle of the OGL drama, I'm like, if things keep going in this direction, which at the time it felt like they were going, I was like, I don't want to support Wizards of the Coast directly. So I don't want to, basically offer free advertising for their game system, their products, whatever. And really, I got excited about a lot of the other projects I heard about. So Paizo's Orc license, Project Black Flag from Kobold Press. And as the OGL situation resolved, and as we got more information, I came to the decision to continue to cover 1D&D material for a few reasons, which I want to lay out. Again, why I have notes so I can organize my thoughts a little bit. So I think it's not timeline-wise the first thing, but it was the most significant thing, which is that D&D's executive producer Kyle Brink has had multiple interviews with major D&D influencer social media types, including Ginny D, Nerd Immersion, and Bob Worldbuilder. And I want to shout out Bob Worldbuilder's interview in particular. I really liked Nerd Immersions too, but one thing I noticed with all three of these interviews, I actually haven't listened to I think it's Three Black Halflings, I think that was an interview too, is they did it in this YouTube style where the interview was edited in a specific way, and it was like, here's Kyle Brink talking, and here are my thoughts on it. And what I found different from my perspective anyway with Bob Worldbuilders is that he had the long form, unedited, as far as I could tell, podcast interview that was like an hour long on a separate YouTube channel. And then he released the whole, like, we're going to cut it and commentate on it. And there was actually like a lot that I felt personally was lost in translation from the long form interview to the edited version. In particular, Bob did something really smart I want to point out, which was in the long form interview, Kyle Brink was humanized in a different way. So Bob still asked and asked respectfully, some very pointed questions. He didn't let Kyle Brink off the hook at all, but he started the interview by saying, what other TTRPGs other than 5th edition do you enjoy playing? And you could hear Kyle light up and just get excited for other people's products. And I thought that was a very genuine kind of joy. And the other thing is Kyle Brink. I know I'm going off on a tangent here. Kyle Brink has mentioned, no matter what I say, people probably aren't going to believe me. And that makes the comment section so funny because, like, this corporate, like, stooge is definitely lying to our faces. And it's like, yeah, he said that was going to happen. So, but anyway, it wasn't that I think that Kyle Brinks should be taken at his word or whatever. That the point is, a lot of in multiple interviews, he mentioned that 1D&D is going to be released into the Creative Commons, just like SRD 5.1. Obviously, I'm going to trust it when I see it, but when it comes to my decision to cover 1D&D UA as it gets released, that definitely helped, because it's not I'm covering this as a product that I'm endorsing that you buy when it comes out in 2024. No, the lens is more 1D&D is theoretically going to be a Creative Commons / I'm pretty sure OGL supported game system that creators can produce content with. And I think that if you're looking at it from a game design standpoint, as a third-party publisher standpoint, just knowing what's out there and objectively looking at the material from that game design lens is valuable. I think that to say, well, 1D&D is being made by Wizards of the Coast and they've done a lot of scummy moves, which they have. So therefore, I'm going to ignore that system. I honestly, you kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, I still think there's a lot of valuable insights that game designers can have by looking at the 1D&D UA and listening to the interviews Todd Kenrick has with Jeremy Crawford and just understanding the thought process. And even if you disagree with a lot of the decisions being made, even if the content isn't to your taste, I use this story sometimes where when my wife and I were looking at the house that we live in now, our realtor often said to us, you still look at the properties you don't want to buy, because what they do is help you hone specifically in on what you do want to buy. And you don't know what you don't know until you actually take a tour of a property. So in the same way, we're taking a tour of a game system. There may be things that you don't like, there may be things that you do like, but if it's in Creative Commons, you at least have the option to mold it or change it or port it into a system that you do like. So, that was like the most important one for me. The second most important one, and really I think no matter where you stand on your opinion on this, like, it's still valuable to read the 1D&D information, is Kobold Press released Playtest Packet 1 of Project Black Flag. Last week, we released a video on just our impressions about it before we play tested it. I will say, we play tested it. There will be a follow-up video on our thoughts on the status of Project Black Flag. The other thing that I didn't have access to, like, that got released after I made that impressions video, was Design Diary 1, which is the Todd Kenrick Jeremy interview analog for the process of creating Project Black Flag. That has definitely affected the way that I view that project. And there will also be a panel discussion podcast that we're planning on recording tomorrow morning. It should be released next Friday for your listening pleasure if you like the more long-form conversations that I do. I'm looking at my notes. I think one of the biggest revelations of Playtest Packet 1 is that Project Black Flag, in Kobold Press's own words, is a 5e clone. I have thoughts about that. And if you want to be like, yeah, down with WotC, yeah, up with Project Black Flag, when you're looking at Project Black Flag as a 5e clone that's intended to be backwards compatible, 1D&D, Kyle Brink said, is also backwards compatible. And I know a lot of people are mistrustful of that right now. They are like, it's not truly backwards compatible. And I really think that we just have to, we have to ask ourselves, what does backwards compatible mean? For example, if you take the new Cleric chassis, right, that we got in the last UA, and you try to play a Peace Domain Cleric, it's going to be chunky to try to fit those subclass features into the new chassis and expect it to play, smoothly, right? And if you take a new Cleric, and the playtest Cleric, levels 1 through 20 as is, as presented in the doc, and you play it alongside an old version Cleric, there may be some power discrepancies between the two things, but from a rules standpoint, I don't see why you couldn't just play them together. Again, in terms of the health of the game, is it a good decision? Probably not. Are they compatible in terms of playing in the same system at the same table? Honestly, yeah. That was the whole thing with the first UA. That was the I think they were called races back then, or maybe it was just called character creation. But we got the sense of what the PHB species are going to look like, elf, tiefling, all that stuff. It was compatible. It, again, may be a little rough in terms of playing old material with new material at the same table, but it was compatible. So that's where I think, I think there are just a lot of bad faith comments about the backwards compatibility of 1D&D with 5th edition that I think are frankly unfair. I think that I haven't really seen how promises are broken. I think that the community had one expectation, and you can say that it's on Wizards of the Coast to clarify those expectations, but I haven't seen any outright untruths in the design of 1D&D so far. And to be honest, I kind of like the design of 1D&D. But yeah, the ultimate point here with Project Black Flag is, let's say you like Project Black Flag and you also don't not like 1D&D. It could be that because Project Black Flag is a 5e clone that is supposedly backwards compatible as well, which already is doubtful because they threw out the feat system for a talent system. You might want to take certain tools from Project Black Flag and certain tools from 1D&D and combine them to a custom system that your table is comfortable with. For example, you might really like the idea of lineages and heritages from Project Black Flag, but you really like the background, feats, and classes from 1D&D. I can definitely see a table using separate models and creating their own hybrid game. And to go back to Bob Worldbuilder, just one other thing that he mentioned that I thought was pretty remarkable was just that he was mentioning, buy the products that are fun for you. So one thing that I don't want to see is people getting shamed for continuing to buy D&D products because they enjoy them. Like, I think that the community is starting to get toward the kind of extreme end of blaming consumers for moral stances or whatever. Now, if you don't like 5th edition, if you think the third-party material is better, buy that stuff. But I enjoy 5th edition. I know that my table enjoys 5th edition. I know my table gets excited about 1D&D. In fact, with the, like, Jeremy Crawford, Todd Kenrick interviews that we've gotten over the past 2 days, I was surprised by how excited I was to finally see more 1D&D Unearthed Arcana. So I felt like Pop World Builder, I shouldn't have needed it, but it felt good, like, getting kind of permission from someone big in the space, someone that was so critical of the OGL mess and everything, to be like, you know, do what makes you happy, man. So that actually meant a whole lot, and I really appreciated that, you know, he included that. That, and I do want to create my own system. I think that 5th edition has issues. I think 1D&D and Project Black Flag have issues. I think that Pathfinder is not a system I want to jump ship on and just be like, I'm a Pathfinder player now. We are going to play the beginner box. We did a character creation part, but don't worry, that Pathfinder, like, we play tested it, here are my thoughts video, is in the pipeline. But again, I want to create my own system that's going to produce the most amount of happiness for my table. And to do that, I need to know what's available, or it would be most beneficial to know what content is available. So that's why, that's why I've decided to do this, this live stream review. I know we're like 16 minutes in already or whatever. But the other thing is, this live stream is being, like, done on the same, like an hour after Ian just uploaded his video on originality and archetypes. Go check out that video. Don't let this distract from that. He did a really good job on that, and I definitely learned a lot from listening to it as well. So, next on the agenda. Before looking at the actual UA, excuse me, Let's talk about Todd Kenrick's latest interviews with Jeremy Crawford. So we've gotten 3 videos over the past 2 days. First was on the survey result of Cleric and Revised Species, which was UA number 3, as well as the future of 1D&D. Then we got a 16-minute video on the Druid that gets presented here, which the iconic version of the Druid is going to be Circle of the Land. Circle of the Moon. It used to be Circle of the Land. My mistake. And the new Paladin, which is, there's a 20-minute video on the Oath of Devotion Paladin. Now, a lot of what they said, I'm sure I'm going to cover, like, within the document itself. Who's trying to talk to me? What? Okay. Anyway. Yikes. Sorry, I got interrupted. But with, what I wanted to get out of, like, I watched all 3 of those videos. I took some notes. There's going to be some things they mention, like how Wild Shape has changed, or there's been some edit to Divine Smites. I will talk about when I see the UA itself. But there were some things I think that were valuable insights that aren't necessarily evident if you only read the UA. So, so first, from the survey results, future of 1D&D, thing, there were, okay, so during the OGL debacle, one of the things that, came out was, that, I don't want to name names, but it came out that the 1D&D team and the design team in general doesn't look at survey results. They don't care. They only want it to feel like you're heard, and it's really this elaborate ruse where they don't take that into consideration. When that came out, I was shocked and skeptical, because I'm like, but I've seen where they release a concept, then talk about the feedback, and then in an official book, like, that feedback is reflected in the final design. Like, I'm like, there's no way. So I did think it was really smart that throughout that video, Jeremy Crawford went through specific instances of how not only did they look at satisfaction scores, which help determine how well liked or not liked certain design elements are, they also look at comments in order to determine certain things. So a particular instance I can point to is he talked about the jump action and how if you looked merely at the satisfaction scores, the jump action was satisfactory. But if you looked at the comments were like, I could live with this, or this is meh. And he's like, that's not good enough. We want an awesome game, not a meh game. So the jump action has been removed. So when you're, so there's multiple times they demonstrated the fact that they look at survey results, that they make design decisions based on that. Another thing that got removed that I'm really happy about is Ardlings. And what Jeremy Crawford said as the reason for their removal is exactly what I said, which is they need context. I am not against Ardlings being in the game. I'm against Ardlings being a core species that is supposedly setting agnostic and can be plugged into whatever, right? I think that they had a highly specific kit of being these celestial beast folk, whereas if we wanted a generic core species, either celestial or beast folk, maybe some option to combine them, but not, it was too specific. And my original argument is they should be released in a specific setting that is going to support them, rather than just tell the DM, figure out how this Triceratops person that can innately cast Healing Word fits into your world, right? Because it's in the PHB. So, that was another example. Another thing that they said is that the Unearthed Arcanas are going to be meatier and spaced farther apart, and that's to allow for more playtesting. As someone who has participated in a fair share of playtests with 1D&D, I can attest to and someone who just playtested Project Black Flag. You know, we got the packet last Monday, and then I had to playtest it on Friday. Like, as a content creator, the pressure to have quick turnaround on playtesting is real. And it's really appreciated that they're thinking of how we want the most thoughtful feedback, so we're going to expand the gap in between releases. Also, little bit of a spoiler for my Project Black Flag video. There wasn't enough material in Project Black Flag to be like, yeah, we play tested it. There was like the same insights we got through playtesting were the ones that happened during character creation. We didn't have to playtest it. We just needed to make some characters and be like, oh, Cloud is good, Grove isn't. Like, so in the same way, if we have actual material to play, like the best one was the expert classes, where we had 3 classes so you could playtest. You're a bard, you're a ranger, you're a rogue, I'm a DM. Let's playtest them. And see how they compare to our previous experience with these classes. Meteor UAs are definitely more appreciated. On that note, they also, I'm pretty sure they made mention that, kind of like OGL 1.2, if they open up surveys and there is a flood of feedback that is very apparent, they're going to let us know what that feedback is. Again, I'll believe it when I see it, but it's a nice thought to share. So in terms of in terms of some of the specific design, Druid, apparently Wild Shape is now under the Channel Nature, which is their version of Channel Divinity. That's gained at first level because they see Wild Shape as being an iconic feature of Druid. And in the same section, Jeremy Crawford's like, but not everybody likes shapeshifting. Some people want to be just a nature magician. That's me. I don't like shapeshifting druids, or personally, I don't like playing them, right? So I just find it interesting that, the default subclass we get is Moon Druid, which is all about shapeshifting. One of the things I found interesting that Jeremy Crawford mentioned that you won't see in the UA, of the 12 core classes in the player's handbook, I know in the past he mentioned Ranger in terms of satisfaction score was at the bottom because Natural Explorer and Favorite Enemy were just too situational as mechanics. But Druid is the least played. So people who play Druid end up really liking it, for the most part, from what I understand. But because Wild Shape mechanics is specifically what they pointed to, because Wild Shape is so clunky as is, you have to understand CRs, you have to understand stat blocks, you have to, there's a wall of text to decipher. Because of that, not a lot of people want to play Druids. So I just thought that was really interesting because I love playing Druids. I love playing not shape-shifting Druids, but I can definitely say that if I had a new player and they're like, what class do you recommend? Druid would be at the bottom because it's just so... Even wizards are less complicated than druids. So, now apparently they've solved it with the same method as Tasha's. There's a Beast of a Land, Beast of Air, Beast of Sea, and when you wild shape, you choose one of those 3 stat blocks, and you can just flavor it however you want. So, if you're a Beast of the Land, you can be a wolf or a cat or land thing, armadillo. But they're all going to have the same stats, but the idea is that you choose the cosmetics, but the mechanics are going to be the same, and they're going to be more streamlined, which I think is smart. As a trend, I've noticed now that we have half of the classes in the PHB, as a trend, I've noticed that I think each class's chassis has gotten stronger and each subclass has gotten weaker. This is before I've seen the Druid and Paladin material. That's just the sense I've been getting. So in Cleric, Holy Order was definitely a boost. Channel Divinity at level 1, that Divine Spark is notorious for how powerful it is at such low levels. But the Life Domain Cleric, from listening to optimizers much smarter than I am, is weaker than the 2014 PHB one. In the same way, looking at Rogue, besides the sneak attack nerf, I think the chassis of Rogue might be a little stronger, but Thief is definitely weaker. So I think there's just some interesting balancing that's going on. But for the most part, what I've seen from the community is man, this is nerfed. Man, this is brutal. I know one thing that I'm going to briefly mention is Divine Smite can only be used once a turn instead of once an attack. And it's this is brutal. Paladins are ruined, So, that being said, besides Ranger, I feel like all of the classes are getting a little nerfed. And you compare this with what he said about, he said high CR creatures are getting beefed up. So, I think that in general, from my experience playtesting 1D&D material, I want to say that in general, the classes are getting nerfed a little bit, but I don't think that's unhealthy for the game. I would need to see what the new monster design looks like, to be honest, to be able to make that, to be able to be clear on what the different power balance is going to be. But I don't think just because something is weaker means that the game gets worse. There's a lot of times where in my discussions with a lot of different players, some options that exist in the game as is are so powerful, it's hard not to take them from a power perspective. The shield spell is a good example. Tasha's Mind Whip, Peace, and Twilight Domain Cleric. They're just so good. It's how do I pick something that's not that? And of course, there are the personalities that are well, because it's so good, it's not interesting. I'll just take the weaker option. But again, I don't think having the options be this is the good one, this is the bad one, and then have people that want bad ones more than good ones and vice versa. I don't think that's healthy for the game. So yes, I think things are getting rebalanced. I think things are gonna in general, the power level that players are gonna be at with classes, it's gonna go down a little bit. And I don't think that that's ultimately a bad thing. I will have to see further design down the road. Now, just some other things, I guess. Epic boons are being reworked. Thank goodness. He said, Jeremy Crawford said, epic boons. People have asked that they be more epic. That's me. I said that. So that's, it's nice that they're listening. And just some little things that. So 3 more little things before we actually move over to looking at the playtest. Todd Kenrick said something I thought was fascinating. Playtesting never stops. I really want every game master to internalize that. There are a lot of times where a game master's like, these are the house rules I use. And it's like, watching for if it's actually fun in play and implementation. The rules don't have to be static. You have the ability to change them. That's the beauty of a TTRPG over a coded medium like a video game, is that, like, playtesting never stops. You don't have to stick with what you have if it's unsatisfactory. So, little gem there. And then when Jeremy Crawford was talking about the Find Familiar spell, he was talking about, they've changed Find Steed and Find Familiar. And Todd Kenrick was like, oh, is there an aberration version? Because, my wife really has, like, this squiddling familiar, and will that be an option? And Jeremy Crawford's like, well, we haven't gotten to Warlock yet. And Todd Kenrick was like, whoa! But the thing Jeremy Crawford said is, now that we have an established infrastructure, we could build off of that. And the one positive thing I can see about one positive thing, not the only thing about 1D&D's design, is that they're developing strong infrastructures that make it easy to build off of. And I think especially when you're creating core options, like you're deciding which species should be in the player's handbook, what should the classes be doing. That's something I think that GM should take to heart. That yes, there might not be highly specific lore, but that's where your creativity gets to come in. You get to create the specifics of your world. The playtesting never stops. As long as the game has a strong generic architecture, you can start to play with things and make adjustments in order to tune the game to being what you want it to be. And then the last little spoiler is that the Necromancer Wizard's going to be better. It's going to be easier to be a Necromancer. So yeah. All right. If you're still with me, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the what you're actually here for. I gave some time for some people to listen in. So where's my little button here? Transition. Beautiful. All right. So this is how many pages is this? 29-page document I've set myself up for. Okay. So we get Moon Druid, Devotion Paladin, some revised feats, which I think are the new, the Epic Boon feats. We have spells and an updated rules glossary. And again, you're supposed to use whatever the latest rules glossary is. And that's what I mean by compatibility is, yes, this new system may have different definitions, but those definitions, just need to be plugged into the old system, and it's, all compatible. So it's like, if you have an old version of a character, and it's like, when it takes the attack action, just use the newest version of the attack action. This is all, if you've done any of these UAs before, these are, these are pretty generic. It's like, how to playtest this material. Playtest it. Have a special playtest session. You could also use a short adventure, like Keys from the Golden Vault, which there has been no what's it called? Fanfare. Wow. Fanfare 4. That took a while. And then power level, it's volatile. Go to the surveys. And then, just these are some things we're going to be getting from this UA. So there is, so having looked at the core rulebook of Pathfinder 2, there are some very interesting terms being thrown as part of this playtest, like primary ability. That's also a Pathfinder thing. It's not a D&D thing, but it establishes what the primary ability of each class is, and that's what you need a score of 13 in to multi-class. Now, that also means, I don't know if, like, Paladin, you needed Strength and Charisma to be a 13, but Fighter, it was Dex or Strength. So I don't know how that's going to affect it. I can't remember what they did with Ranger. But, so, 3 character highlights. All classes have new features, as well as revised versions of old features. Alright. Let's just dive into it. So Druid is part of the Priest group, and its primary ability score is Wisdom. There is some description that I am not going to read. Oh, one thing I've learned from these UAs. I'm gonna get things wrong. I'm gonna miss something. I'm gonna skip something. I'm gonna misread, misinterpret something. Hey, if I do those things and you've checked out this material, call me out in the comments. And if we do it live, then I can look like an idiot. Alive. So, alright, so let's look at what the Druid features are now. So they still have Druidic, spellcasting, and Channel Nature, which we, and then they get more Channel Natures as you go up in level. And then, I don't know what Nature's Aid is yet. That'll be interesting. Might of the Land, I think, has to do with the wild shaping. Tiny Critter, Wild Resurgence, and then Epic Boon. So I wonder if there's like a class-specific Epic Boon that you can choose, and then there are some generic ones, so you have that ability to customize a little bit. But, I think, let's see what they've done with it. So, alright, creating a Druid, so it's still D8 hit points, Intelligence and Wisdom saves. For skills, they look pretty boilerplate in terms of what Druids get. Oh, that's interesting. So I remember creating Druids, one of the worst things was the fact that they had such specific weapons proficiencies that it's like, you can get sickles and daggers and staves and now it's just simple weapons, so much simpler. And proficiency in Herbalism kit, so that's kind of nice. And interestingly, I think they used to have medium armor proficiency, but what was odd was that they couldn't use metal armor, but I don't think there is metal light armor. I guess it would be studded armor, but yeah, they took out the whole non-metal armor thing, which I always thought was kind of strange because I understood the lore reasoning of, Druids see metal as an abomination of earth and blah, blah, blah. But they'd use metal weapons, so it felt a little inconsistent. And it also felt oddly restrictive and specific, given that most of the other classes tended to be more generic. So add all your Druid levels to the appropriate levels from other classes to determine spell slots. Prepare spells for each of your classes individually, referring to the spell slots of an individual class to determine the number and levels of the spells you prepare for it. This is a design thing with a 1D&D that I hate. I hate that it's like, you have 4 first level spell slots, so you get 4 first level spells. I don't care if you simplify or complicate the number, but to be like, all right, you got 10 spells. You got these spell slots to use them for. If you want to use 9 of them on first level spells and 1 of them on a third level spell, you go for it. I liked building characters like that. I don't like this. I don't like it. Actually, as I say that, I hope there's a variant rule in the Dungeon Master's Guide that's like legacy spell selection or something. So now on to our first new feature, Channel Nature. So there's flavor. You start with one such effect, Wild Shape. Other Druid features give additional Channel Nature options. I wish they started with 2 so that you didn't have to be a shapeshifter, but hey. So Wild Shape. As a magic action, you transform into a form that you have learned for this feature. You start with Animal of the Land. You stay in that form for a number of hours equal to half your Druid level or until you use Wild Shape again. So it is an action to turn into it. You can also end Wild Shape as a bonus action. While in this form, its game statistics to replace yours, and your ability to handle objects is determined by the form's limbs rather than your own. You retain your personality, memories, ability to speak. I believe that was missing in the 5th edition Wild Shape. So that's a big change. And I remember there being this, I did a build once where it was like Ghostwise Halfling, so you could like telepathically silent speech while in Wild Shape, and it was like, whoa, what a combo. And you lose access to all your other features, such as the ability to cast spells. That is a major nerf. Not one I'm not okay with, but one of the classic builds was Barbarian, where you take 3 levels of Bear Totem and you take a bunch of Moon Druid. And the idea was, as a wild-shaped creature, you could now use your unarmored defense, if that would make it better. Because that was a feature. You could use your Rage and be resistant to all damage because from Bear Totem, and you wouldn't lose your Rage feature. You retained your class features. I like this better. And then when you transform, you choose if your equipment falls to the ground or it merges into your new form. And, a design note. In the previous Unearthed Arcana, the Cleric's version of Channel Divinity offered a number of uses equal to a character's proficiency bonus. That number is too generous for a multi-class character who could take only 1 level in the Cleric and then get an ever-increasing uses as the character gains levels in another class. In the Druid and Paladin, we have therefore given Channel Divinity and Channel Nature a number of uses tied to the class rather than proficiency bonus. That was something I complained about. I also hope that when we do the next Cleric, that the Divine Spark, I think is what it was called, was where the Cleric, like the number of damage or healing it could do with dice was also equal to your proficiency bonus. I also want that tied to Cleric levels. This was one of the immediate criticisms of that Cleric UA, and I'm so happy to see that it's addressed here. Molotov Dojo Rat, don't you worry. I spent half an hour on preamble just to set up this live stream. So we're still in the first Druid feature that I can complain about. So now we're into Druidic. It's a special language. And then on to spellcasting, which still uses the dumb spells prepared equals spell slots rule that I hate. And, I wish the flavor features, Druidcraft, Thaumaturgy, Prestidigitation, I wish they were class features. I might just house roll that you just get that. So you're not giving up a spell in order to use something that's flavorful or something without super big mechanical impacts but are fun story-wise. And then, of course, this is a spells prepared class like everything else. All right. So now we get to second level, which is Nature's Aid. You learn 2 more ways to use your channel Nature, Healing Blossoms and Wild Companion. So Healing Blossoms is as a magic action. You channel healing energy that appears as blooming flowers. This is what I would want alongside Wild Shape for first level. Choose a point within 30 feet and spectral flowers appear for a moment in a 10-foot radius sphere centered on that point. Then a number of d4s equal to your wisdom modifier, and then add the dice together. The total is the number of hit points you can distribute to creatures in that sphere. You decide the number of hit points that are restored to each of those creatures, deducting the healing from the total. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I don't see why you would need to wait till second level to use that. It's an action. It's an AoE heal. I think it's a little less powerful. I think Divine Spark was D8s, so it is pretty significantly less powerful. And I think I disagree that Wild Shape is the iconic Druid feature. I think Channel Nature should be the iconic Druid feature in the same way that Holy Order and Channel Divinity are the iconic cleric features. So that's my take of the day. Wild Companion. Oh, cool. All right. So one of the things that I didn't like from the Rogue design is that they didn't put steady aim in from Tasha's as a core feature of the new thing, but they did put the expertise and like roving and those kind of features into the Ranger. So I like seeing that the Find Familiar part of Wild Shape as like an additional Wild Shape use of Druid is added here as a Channel Nature feature. So you summon a nature spirit that assumes an animal form to aid you. As a magic action, expend a use of Channel Nature and cast Find Familiar without material components. When you cast the spell in this way, the familiar is a fae and it disappears when you finish a long rest. One thing Jeremy Crawford teased about Find Familiar and Find Steed is that it used to be that you would choose a creature type for your familiar / steed, and that would be mostly for flavor, but obviously there are specific spells that target certain creature types, so a protection from evil and good would ward celestial, fiends, fae, that kind of thing. But there might be another feature that it's like ward fae or something like that. It only affects fae but not fiends and celestials. Now, depending on what you choose as the creature type, there are additional effects. So with Find Familiar, it is specifically fae. So Find Familiar may have specific mechanics tied to the fae creature type choice. So I like it. I think if you're going to give a special way to cast Find Familiar, I think it's fine to give it a restriction of what kind of Find Familiar what kind of familiar you are finding with Find Familiar. Say that 10 times fast. And like everything else, your subclass is at level 3, and we will find out what that means later. Might of the Land, you unlock the land form's climb speed and multi-attack. Again, awful bold of you to assume that I would care about the animal form. Excuse me. Level 7, you get the aquatic form. Level 9, the aerial form. Excuse me. All right. And then level 11, you gain the ability to become tiny. When you transform into a wild shape, you can make it tiny. You can be a tiny, like a Pokemon. You can be like a tiny tiger. If you do so, you can stay in that form no longer than 10 minutes, and the damage you deal in that form is halved. But there are some interesting exploration options I can see you getting, and you would be a little more buff. So I have seen things where like someone turns into a spider, and so they can crawl in a crevice and spy on things, but they have a hit point. So if somebody spots that spider and steps on them or something, they instantly transform back into their regular form. So 13th level, you can now rapidly shift between a wild shape and your normal form. If you're in wild shape, you can switch to your normal form as a bonus action, and then you can switch back into that wild shape form within the next minute as a bonus action. Neither switch expends a use of wild shape, which is cool. You can like whoop and then smack them with a spell and then bloop, back to your wild shape form. That's neat. Again, what if you don't like shape-shifting? I don't know. I guess you just lean on spells. Whatever. So Wild Resurgence. Wait, what I miss at level 14? Oh, it's a subclass thing. So when you use your wild shape, primal magic radiates from you, allowing you to use Healing Blossoms as part of the same channel nature. Okay. When you cast spells in any wild shape, you can cast spells in any wild shape form. So this is gained at an earlier level, so you're more likely to see it, even though no one plays at level 17. And you don't need to provide free material components. Okay, so if a spell consumes its material component, you can't cast that spell while in a wild shape form. So that's nice. You can just cast spells. You get to keep your concentration. I have to scroll back. Oh, yeah, you can still concentrate on spells. So you can concentrate and then wild shape and keep your concentration, but maybe avoid being targeted so that, there's no fear that your concentration is going to drop. And then Archdruid, this used to be the level 20 feature. Whenever you roll initiative, you regain a use of Channel Nature. All right. In addition, your primal magic that you wield causes you to age slowly. For every 10 years that pass, your body ages only 1. All right. In the chassis, hold on. In the original chassis, was this something that like would let you do unlimited wild shapes? I'm looking it up. Yeah, alright. So, Archdruid has kind of, Archdruid is what was Timeless Body, but now, and yeah, you get another Channel Nature, cool, but Archdruid used to be that you can just wild shape an unlimited number of times, and maybe they figured out that, like, wait a minute, that's broken. So, it's silly. Actually, let me go back to Wild Shape again. You lose access. You can transform. Oh, does it say when do you go back? You stay in that form or until you use Wild Shape again. Have the incapacitated condition or die. So, the thing that's interesting that's missing from here is that it used to say that, you know, if your wild shape form has a certain number of hit points, if those hit points get reduced to 0, that's when you turn back into your normal form and you take leftover damage. So if your form had 15 hit points and you take 20, you know, you get reduced to 0, you turn back, and then you get 5 damage, like, splashed over to your normal hit point pool. There's nothing about that here. You just stay in that form for a number of hours. So let's actually scroll down a little bit to the Animal of the Land. You continue to use your hit points and hit dice. Okay. Question answered. So I guess you literally stay as that beast form until you, like, get incapacitated or die. So if you get reduced to 0, you don't just turn back into yourself, you just get knocked out as a tiger. You get knocked out instantly. So, like, you should choose those okay. All right. I see what's happening. So now, Epic Boon, you gain the following benefits. Choose one of your ability scores. That score increases by 2, and this increase can raise the score above 20, but not 30. I don't know how you'd increase to begin with unless there are other Epic Boons that let you do that past level 20. All right? Epic Boon feature. So this is a design note. In response to playtest feedback, we've made the Epic Boon feature in the Druid and Paladin more powerful than the version previously offered in the Cleric and the 3 Experts. When we revisit those classes, we'll add the ability, score, increase, benefit to their versions of the feature. But what we wanted was class-specific Epic Boons, not just generic, you get a bigger number, like a little. Let me scroll down to the Epic Boons now, because now I'm mad. Okay, so you can get the Epic Boon of Fate. Yeah, they're still group-based. They're not class-based. Which I guess is okay, but I feel like that's going to make everyone less excited to get to level 20. Because they're like, I don't get anything. Oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me again. Oh, yikes. Yeah, I just feel like they're gonna be like, all right, like, cool. Like, there's nothing exciting at 20th level for them to work to. It's just, you get, I don't know, like, if I were playing a druid with this, I think, like, maybe 13th would be the last level I'd be excited about. Like, all the other features, I don't know. They're cool, I guess, but, like, Ooh, I can age slower. Like, that's a cool storytelling thing, but that's not gonna... I'm not gonna hit level 18 and be like, yeah, I can only age every, I age 10 times slower. Like, do the old Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 3 dance. Like, it's the early stuff is definitely smoother, but the higher level stuff still isn't. I don't know. But let's take a look at the 3 animal stat blocks. So you have Animal of the Land. Excuse me for my sniffles. Has a higher speed. The armor class is 10 plus Wisdom. That's pretty cool. You continue to use your hit points and hit dice. And then, oh, that's interesting. Strength and Dex are your Wisdom, but Con, Int, Wisdom, and Charisma are just whatever your scores are. Oh, much simpler to use. It has Dark Vision, a Bestial Strike, and then two Beast Strike attacks at 5th level. Okay. And then when you hit C, you just get a swimming speed. You get, and then Sky, you get Sky stuff. So I know one of their design things is it was hard for players to like open up the back of the player's handbook and sift through all of the possible beast options of the CR they could hit and try to like make a decision, which I agree with. Having played that character, I basically went to an optimizing guide and was just like, what's the best one? And it's like, brown bear. All right. I think this still requires some more work than maybe like Ranger or Bard. This is a much stronger, by stronger I don't mean more powerful, but this is a much more elegant design. I really like this a lot. So looking at Circle of the Moon, combat wild shape. While you're in wild shape, you can cast any spell you currently have prepared from Abjuration, which means if you take the Magic Initiate feat at 1st level, you can pick up the Shield spell. You can use Unarmed Strike as a bonus action. While you're a beast form. Oh, while transformed. Now, is that transformed through wild shape? Or can you do that if you get polymorph too? Because polymorph is a lot more versatile than wild shape. Huh. And then swift transformation. You can use your wild shape as a bonus action or magic action, but no more than once on a turn. No. Yeah. No, it's classic. It's combat wild shape. It's just a little better because you get an unarmed strike as a bonus action. That's cool. All right. Elemental wild shape. This is the thing that my my D&D circle, my friends have been texting me about. So, channeling ancient lunar magic, you imbue your wild shape powers with those from the elemental planes. Whenever you assume a wild shape form, choose one of the following damage types, the elemental ones: acid, cold, fire, lightning, thunder. While in that form, you have resistance to the chosen type, and the form's bestial strike can deal damage of that type rather than its normal type, with you choosing between the types when you hit. Oh, so basically you can choose between it being like a slashing claw or a fire claw. Your form also displays signs of the chosen damage type. So if you're fire, your fur might flicker with harmless flames. So this is where, like, if you have an aerial form, like your higher level druid, you can be a large animal of the sky. You can choose fire as your elemental shape, and you can be a phoenix. And then elemental strike. When you deal damage with bestial strike, the target takes an extra 1d6 damage of the type you chose from elemental wild shape. So you could do like 1d8 slashing and 1d6 fire on top of it, or you could have both of them be fire damage. And then thousand forms, You always have Alter Self prepared and can cast it without expending a spell slot, and it doesn't count against the number of spells prepared. I've never really seen Alter Self be used, like, where it's like, wow, Alter Self, but hey, it's cool. Like, and especially if it's free, like, you might be able to see that in play a little more. I'm thinking just, if I play test like this, I think I want to do it at like 14th or 15th level, really, to just get a huge sense of all of these different higher level features. So yeah. All right. Overall, my thoughts of Druid. So in terms of objectively looking at the design, I think this is a cleaner design. I think for new players, especially ones interested in wild shaping, I can recommend this to new players a lot easier than I could the old Druid. Now, personally, I don't like how the chassis is so reliant on wild shape. I really prefer, when I play a Druid, like Jeremy Crawford mentioned, I like playing them as a nature magician, just a spellcaster that focuses on plant magic and geomancy. When I play Druids, I never wild shape because it's not part of the character I envision. So I'm kind of, I think in my feedback, like I like the features. I just wish the features were tied more to the moon subclass. I'm fine with wild shape being a first level feature, but I want that healing blossoms to also be a first level feature. And then I do understand how the wild companion can be a second level feature. So I just think some things can be moved around to make me happy. But overall, I do think that this is a stronger chassis than we had in the 2014 PHB. So the other class that we get, the other priest, is Paladin. Yes, and their primary abilities are Strength and Charisma, so you still need to be good at both of those in order to multi-class. They have a slightly different... Nope, their Channel Divinity progression is the same as Druids. That's interesting. I think in the PHB, like the 2014 one, they had, kind of like how they are half casters, they had like a slower Channel Divinity progression. So it's interesting to see that it's the same. So creating a paladin, your usual stuff. So D10 hit die, wisdom charisma saves. You know, these skills look like paladin skills. Weapons proficiencies are normal. Armor proficiencies are normal. And then what we were teased about is that lay on hands is a little different. So your blessed touch can heal wounds. You have a pool of healing power that replenishes when you take a long rest. With that pool, you can restore a total number of hit points equal to 5 times your paladin level. As a magic action, you can touch a creature and draw power from the pool of healing to restore a number of hit points to that creature up to the max amount remaining in the pool. In addition, you can expend 5 hit points from the pool of healing to remove the poisoned condition from that creature. You say poisoned and disease. I wonder, I've already kind of seen this in some of the errata of 5th edition, but I wonder if disease is going to be wrapped up with poison. So rather than poison and disease, disease is like a subcategory of poison. All right, then spellcasting, yada yada. Resistance is better than it was. So, I think that's all usual. This is going to be the first one that's going to pain some people. My mom is going to be really upset by this. I think this is a change for the better. Divine Smite is, as always, immediately after you hit a target with an attack roll using a weapon or unarmed strike. That weapon can be melee or ranged. You can expend a spell slot to deal radiant damage to the target. The damage progression is the same, 2d8 for a first level spell slot, plus a d8 for every spell slot higher than first. although it does not limit it to 5th level spell slots. Like, I think in the original PHB, it was you could only go up to smiting with a 5th level spell slot. You couldn't use like 6th or higher. But you can only use Divine Smite once per turn, and you can't use it on the same turn that you cast a spell. They need to use that language for sneak attack too. I don't like this whole you can't sneak attack with reactions, but you can Divine Smite with reactions. That's gonna... The idea is that if you broke down the power level of the 2014 PHB class chassis, Treant Monk did an awesome series of videos on this. You should go check them out. But to sum it up, basically, the martial classes, the ones that are weapons dependent, rogue, barbarian, fighter, ranger, were like at the bottom, and then you had a whole bunch of spell casting classes, and then at the top, it was like wizard was number 1, bard was number 2, I think paladin was number 3. So paladin was so powerful because of Divine Smite and its auras and its armor proficiencies, that it like beat out like warlock, sorcerer, artificer, all those other spell casting classes, druid. Paladin was really powerful. So I think that I know that people really liked the Novaing with Divine Smite. I think that making it more versatile but restricted to once per turn, I think is a smart move. So for fighting style, you get to choose a fighting style feat, even if you aren't a member of the warrior group. All right. All that means is you can't select a fighting style as part of your background. So, Channel Divinity is Divine Sense is now part of Channel Divinity. So, instead of having, Jeremy Crawford mentioned that Paladin used to have a lot of resource pools, meaning that you had to keep track of your lay on hands points, you had to keep track of your Divine Sense uses. And now it's a bonus action. So you don't even have to, I think it used to be an action. So it's a little easier to use. It uses up one of your channel divinities. So it's just a streamlined resource pool, and channel divinities come back on short or long rests. So, and then you can also detect if something has been consecrated or desecrated, which I think used to be part of Divine Sense anyway. So, extra attack is normal. You automatically get Fine Steed, and it doesn't count against the number of spells you can prepare. That's new. When do you get... And your 2nd level spell slot you get at 5th level. I don't play with mounts a lot in the games that I play in or run. But this is kind of neat to see a slight change to the Paladin playstyle. So, when you cast this spell, its casting time is an action. You can also cast the spell once without expending a spell slot, and you regain the ability on a long rest. So, yeah, just Fine Steed. And we'll see what Fine Steed looks like a little later. Ooh, now with the new subclass progression, that Aura of Protection got pushed back to 7th level. That's spicy. So, I do know another thing Jeremy Crawford mentioned is that Paladins used to have multiple auras to keep track of. Now, everything is under Aura of Protection. So, it's not like Aura of Protection and Aura of Fear, whatever the Conquest Paladin one was. It's, you have the one aura, but you add features to it, which I think makes the design have a stronger infrastructure, but I could be wrong about that. So, your aura is invisible and extends 10 feet in every direction, but doesn't extend through total cover. It's still a bonus equal to your charisma modifier, minimum bonus of +1. And then if another paladin is present, a creature can only benefit from one aura of protection at a time. Fair. So Abjure Foes is a channel divinity. You present your holy symbol or weapon, and you can target a number of creatures equal to your charisma modifier that you can see within 60 feet. Each target makes a wisdom save. On a failed save, the target has the dazed and frightened condition for a minute, or until it takes any damage. Man, porting a Conquest Paladin onto this chassis, whew, that's gonna be something. On a successful save, the target has the dazed condition for 1 minute or until it takes damage. Wait, on a successful save? Oh, it's just not frightened. Oh, wow. So it's just auto-dazed. That's messed up. Yeah, because dazed affects its action economy. That's significant. You just do it, huh? It's like, it doesn't matter if you legendary resistance, it's just you're dazed. Wow. Huh. Alright. So 11th level is Radiant Strikes. So that's interesting. So this one is when you hit a target with an attack roll using a simple or martial weapon, the target takes an extra 1d8 radiant damage. This is supposedly the new improved Divine Smite, which, like, it just adds a d8 radiant. I don't think it's interesting that radiant is capitalized. Is it capitalized anywhere else? I thought damage types weren't. Maybe the damage types are capitalized. But it's interesting it doesn't allow you, like, one of the changes to to Divine Smite is that it triggers on unarmed strikes. It's interesting it doesn't trigger on unarmed strikes for the Radiant one. I don't know if that was an oversight or if that was intentional. But I would rather it happen on unarmed strikes too. So, Aura of Courage. You and your allies are immune to the frightened condition while in your Aura of Protection. And then the fear is suppressed while the ally is there. I like it. All right, 15th level, which I'm thinking more and more if I playtest this, I want it to be at 15th level. When you use Lay on Hands on a creature, you can also remove one or more of the following conditions. So not only are you removing poisoned, you're removing blinded, charmed, dazed, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, stunned. You must expend 5 hit points from the healing pool for each condition you remove. So it's not like you spend 5 and they're completely healed. It's you've got to spend 5 for the poisoned, 5 for the deafened, 5 for the dazed, yada yada. And those points don't also restore hit points to that creature. So, I think you have to choose, are you healing, are you restoring hit points, or are you removing conditions? Yeah, rather than using those points to restore hit points. So it's an option that you use with the magic action. All right. Oh. Then you get an aura expansion. Whenever you roll initiative, regaining use of Channel Divinity. And then the epic boon thing. All right. So overall, I think the Divine Smite is the biggest change to the chassis here, and one that I'm not against it. I think a lot of people are going to be upset about the changes. Though the only feature I'm concerned about here is the Abjure Foes, just because I feel like getting to guarantee that you daze everyone for a minute until it takes damage, like that's hefty. So yeah. Anyway, so now we're on to the Oath of Devotion. So let's see. So yeah, they're gonna go with the whole oath thing. Sometimes the right path proves too demanding. Sometimes the heat of emotion causes a paladin to transgress their oath. The DM can choose to take away the paladin subclass or class. This is the same text as the PHB. I don't know. To commit more to paladin. Yes, I think that's a big part of it. I think that they're to look at some of the comments. Yeah, I think that one thing that they know is that for the most part, multi-class characters are stronger than single-class characters, and by pushing certain features a little bit later in the progression, and changing how some of these features function, I think Sorkaden is going to be a lot less compelling than it is currently. Yeah, I think that if you want the higher ranking stuff, you have to commit more to Paladin to get it. And because you can only smite once per turn, you're less likely to blow through all your spell slots as quickly. So, you know, multi-classing into Warlock or Sorcerer is a little bit less needed with this chassis. And I think I like it because of that. I want multi-classing to either be tuning versatility, but not making a build outright more powerful than the current class. So, but yeah, looking at the Oath spells, you can cast one of your prepared spells from this feature without expending a spell slot, and you must finish a long rest before you use this benefit again. So this isn't you get to cast each of them once for free. You get one that you get for free. That's it. Staggering Smite has been changed. Oh, right, yeah, the smite spells I guess have also been changed. Because in Jeremy Crawford's words, the old ones were clunky, which is true. So, 3rd level, Sacred Weapon. Bonus action, Channel Divinity. Imbue a simple or martial weapon with positive energy. For a minute, add your Charisma modifier to attack rolls with that weapon, and each time you hit with it, you cause it to deal its normal damage type or radiant. Fair. The weapon also emits bright light. You can end this effect as a bonus action. This effect also ends if you aren't holding or carrying the weapon or if you get incapacitated. Yeah, pretty straightforward, just little... I don't remember if Sacred Weapon used to also increase the damage bonus. It also doesn't say it has to be a non-magical weapon. It's whatever weapon you have, you make it more accurate and can choose if it's the normal damage type or radiant. And radiant, so far, in 5th edition, is very rarely resisted to. It's a pretty reliable damage type. So, Smite of Protection. Divine Smite now radiates protective energy. Whenever you use your Divine Smite, choose yourself or an ally within 30 feet of yourself. The chosen creature gains temp HP equal to D8 plus the level of the spell slot used for the Divine Smite. It's not bad. So if it's a 1st level smite, it's D8 plus 1. Awesome. All right. Aura of Devotion. You and your allies are immune to charm. If a charmed ally enters the aura, the condition is suppressed. That's nice. So you're getting a bonus to saving throws, suppression of fear, suppression of charm. Cool. All right. And then Holy Nimbus, which used to be the 20th level feature. You're getting it significantly earlier. As a bonus action, you can imbue your aura of protection with holy power, which lasts for a minute or until you end it as a bonus action. Whenever an enemy starts its turn in the aura, that creature gains radiant damage equal to proficiency bonus plus charisma modifier. Oh, so it's just like a little like pop if they enter the aura. The aura is filled with bright light. That is sunlight. Oh, so that's nice. Against vampires. You can either use this with you can use this feature once per long rest unless you use a spell slot of 4th level or higher. You've got to be pretty hard pressed to want to do that for 4th level or higher. So like if you're fighting a vampire, I can see wanting to do sunlight and then some extra radiant damage. Otherwise, I'm not sure proficiency bonus plus charisma modifier is worth a 4th level spell slot. But that's just me. So that's Paladin. I think the Smite of Protection is significant. I like Sacred Weapon. Overall, I think that this is less powerful than the original Paladin. But again, I'm looking at this from the lens of what creates a healthy game dynamic. And I think in terms of evening out the power level of each of the classes, I think Rogue is still underpowered, but taking that aside, I think the other 5 classes are a little bit more balanced and a little bit more intuitive than the 2014 versions. And that is a positive. So yeah. All right. So next, we're talking about feats. Let's take a look at some feats. All right, so we got some epic boons. So this is for mages and priests. So increase your int, wisdom, charisma by 1 to a maximum of 30. When another creature within 60 feet of you fails a d20 test, you can reroll 2d4 and apply the total rolled as a bonus or penalty to the d20. You can use this benefit no more than once per turn. You have 8 uses, and whenever you finish a long rest, you regain 2d4 expended uses. That's interesting. That is definitely better. And it doesn't cost a reaction. And you just have a flat 8 uses of it. Bonus feats at 20th level. A DM can use bonus feats as a form of advancement after characters reach 20th. And then there's XP requirements. That's neat. I would still love some class-specific epic feats, but Epic Boon of Fate, definitely better. And especially if you're going to just allow them to just keep increasing their modifiers too. That makes more sense. Especially if you're gonna be like, it can be better than 20, but no greater than 30, but you only allow them to increase like once. It's like, all right, so you get a 22. And that's it. But yeah, this whole increasing your scores more often, I can see that being a thing. So now we're on to spell recall. Whenever you cast a spell with like a spell slot of 4th level or lower, it looks like, roll a d4. If the number you roll equals the slot's level, the slot isn't expended. 25% for a free spell. Wow, that's nice. And then Boon of True Sight. It's the True Sight one, but you also get a int, wisdom, charisma bump. We've received requests for epic boons to be more epic. We agree they could use more pizzazz. Design team. We'll offer more in the future. What more can you ask for? All right, there are some changes to some spells. Let's see what they are. I'm sure some these underlined ones, like I see Banishment is an underlined spell. I bet you that it's just the same Banishment we saw last time. There's supposed to be a changelog too. Is that further down when we get to the Yeah, here's the change. It's a changelog for the rules glossary. I wish they'd give us a changelog for the spells. All right. So the biggest change with how Smite spells work is that they have they cost your bonus action, but you choose to use them immediately after hitting a creature with a weapon or unarmed strike. So they have the same timing as Divine Smite, but they are spells, not features. But both are magical. And you can't use more than one of them a turn. So Divine Smite, when you use it, you can't also combine that with a spell. So it used to be that, like, let's use Banishing Smite. I remember playing a game with Ian where he used Banishing Smite to set up. He hit the creature, and then he used his second 5th level spell slot to do Divine Smite, so that one attack was stacked with a lot of damage. You can't do that anymore. I also don't think that's the worst thing in the world. So the target is hit by so Banishing Smite. The target takes an extra 5d10 force damage and makes a charisma save or be transported to a harmless demiplane where it is incapacitated. At the end of each of its turns, it repeats the save, ending the spell on itself on a success. If the spell lasts on a target for 1 minute and the target is an aberration, celestial, elemental, fey, or fiend, which means it has failed 10 consecutive charisma saves, the target doesn't return and it's transported to a random location on a plane associated with its creature type. Which I think is a nice little touch, because what it does do is it lets the DM decide what does the extraplanar cosmology look like for your world. It's not referencing specific planes within that D&D has a certain IP over, which is another indicator that they actually are going to release this into Creative Commons, like Kyle Brink promised. So and And then I have a feeling a lot of these are going to be the same. Yeah, Blinding Smite. Find Familiar is the new one. So this is an arcane ritual. This is an otherworldly spirit that manifests as a little animal. It uses the otherworldly familiar stat block. And then kind of like Wild Shape, you choose air, land, or water, as well as the creature type, celestial, fey, or fiend. And then these choices will be reflected in the stat block. So in combat, the familiar is an ally and your companion is an ally to you and your companions. In combat, it shares your initiative count, but it takes its turn immediately after yours. It obeys your commands with no action required, just like normal, unless you use your reaction on its turn to command it to do so. Is to get it to attack. I'm sorry, I missed that. If you don't issue commands, the familiar takes the dodge action and uses its move to avoid danger. And then the familiar disappears if it drops to 0, like always. If you dismiss it as a bonus action, or if you die, when it disappears, it leaves behind anything it was wearing or carrying. If you cast the spell again, you decide whether you summon the familiar that disappeared or a different one. And then you get remote viewing. So as a magic action, you can see what your familiar sees and hears until the end of your next turn. And then you can cast it with higher level spell slots, which will affect its stats. So yeah. So there's a little bit of details to kind of unpack here with the otherworldly familiar, but for the most part, it's things like, if it's the land version, it's got a higher armor class. If it's the hit point version, the hit points are equal to the level. That kind of stuff. It has different speeds based on which version you use. And then, it has an extra dimensional escape. So if it would drop to 0, it instead drops to 1 and vanishes into an extra dimensional space. It remains there for an hour or until you summon it as a magic action, and then it reappears in your space. So it's like a Pokemon. You can return Charmander and have it hide in an extra dimensional space until you can be safe. Cool. And as a reaction, when you cast a spell with a range of touch, the familiar can deliver the spell with its touch. To do so, the familiar must be within 120 feet of you. That is a really good feature. I know it used to be on familiar anyway, but just as a slight, anecdote, I was in a game with a high-level druid, and I had the contagion spell, and I just had the familiar fly over to the creature and use the deliver spell reaction in the PHB version to deliver my contagion, and the creature started having the bloody slimy doom, and that was the end of the fight. Just stun locked it over and over again, took out a dragon that way. Good stuff. So Find Steed is similar in that, you get the different celestial fey fiends. You get this stat block here, which is a little thick, but it has a different bonus action based on your its otherworldly maul has different damage types based on the creature type, and the bonus actions are also different. So it's got a phase step, a fell glare, and a healing touch. Glimmering Smite is a new spell. Basically, it looks like it uses the same format as the other Smite spells, but it takes an extra 2d6 radiant damage and has the same effect as the Fairy Fire spell on it. That's nice. I want to punch something and hit it with fairy dust. Fairy Fire. Spare the Dying's different. You touch a creature that's dying, and it regains a hit point. Love it. Yeah, it looks like these other Smite spells are similar to how they were, just with the new format. I even missed the fact that dying is a condition. There is knocking a creature out. Short rests are different. Love to see what that's like. telepathy, and unconscious is a condition, which is different from incapacitated, I'm guessing. All right, it removed ability check, attack roll, climbing and swimming, which were more complicated, like they were weird movement things. Dash, hidden, jump, slowed, special speeds were removed. All right. So let's take a look at what's left. All right. I don't know if I can really get through everything. Yeah, daze. You can move or take an action, not both, and you can't bonus action or reaction. All right, dying. When a player character drops to 0, that character has the dying condition. I don't know why this is italicized. Has the dying condition, which replaces the following rules in the 2014 Player's Handbook: falling unconscious, death saves, and stabilizing a creature. All right, so the dying condition replaces those rules. All right, I think it's the fact that it was italicized, like, really threw me off. I think that they meant to italicize Player's Handbook, and unfortunately they like got it backwards because nothing else is italicized. That was what was throwing me off. All right, so if you have 0 hit points, if you regain any hit points while dying, the condition ends. You are unconscious. At the start of each of your turns, you must make a death save, a special save that isn't tied to any ability score. Roll a d20. If it's 10 or higher, you succeed. Otherwise, you fail. A success or failure has no effect by itself. The successes and failures also don't need to be consecutive. Keep track of both until you collect 3 of a kind, the effects of which are described below. When this condition ends on you, reset the number of successes and failures to 0. Rolling a 1 or a 20 counts as 2. So, nat 1 is 2 failures, a 20 is regain a hit point. On your third failure, you die. On your third success, you regain a hit point. This condition ends on you as normal, but you are still unconscious and start a short rest, which is a new thing. You remain unconscious until you regain hit points. Excuse me. Or until another creature uses an action to administer first aid. So you're not, like, stabilized at 0. They're taking away stabilized. You just have a hit point and you're unconscious. If you take any damage, you suffer 1 death save. If you suffer a critical hit, you instead suffer 2 death saves. Okay, so yeah, basically instead of stabilized, that whole stabilized rule is taken out in that you have a hit point, but you're also unconscious. All right. I think it's simpler. I think it's easier to keep track of. Personally, as my immediate thing. Oh, so hide, instead of there being a hidden condition, you have the invisible condition. But you can just do that whenever. When you're heavily obscured or behind 3/4 cover, and you must be out of line of sight. If you can see a creature, you can discern whether it can see you. This reminds me of Red versus Blue. They can't see me, I can't see them. That's because, Caboose, you're facing the rock. Alright. What else was changed? If you are invisible, when you roll initiative, you have advantage on the roll. Attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and your attack rolls have advantage. If a creature can somehow see you, as with magic or blind sight, you don't gain this benefit against that creature. Thank goodness they fixed, that bullet point of invisible. And also, if a creature can somehow see you... Wait, didn't hidden just, like, hide talk about you're invisible against that Okay, so if one creature can see you, are you no longer invisible to anybody? Or if the condition ends on you immediately after you make a sound louder than a whisper, an enemy finds you, you make an attack roll, or you cast a spell. Okay, so you can make an attack roll, but as soon as you do, you're no longer hidden, but then you can use the hide action right after as a bonus action to hide again if they can't see you. All right, it's a little more confusing, but it is clearer in terms of how the rules work. All right. Short rest. That's the next one I wanted to take a look at. So short rest is an hour period of downtime. To start a short rest, you must have at least 1 hit point, kind of like in the dying condition. You can spend hit dice. Some features are recharged by a short rest. How's it different? It's stopped by rolling initiative, casting a spell other than a 0 level spell. So you can't do the good berry thing anymore. You take damage. All right, so I think there were some formatting changes, but basically it's not different. We don't have 5-minute short rests like I do at my table with which fixed short rests, but, who's keeping track? So telepathy also got changed. So it's a magical ability that allows a creature to communicate mentally with another creature within a specified range. The contacted creature doesn't need to share a language with the telepath. So actually that makes the Goo Warlock a little bit better using this definition. There's no action required to break telepathy. Yeah. All right. Oh, and there was a change to the unconscious condition. While unconscious, you are also incapacitated and prone, and you drop whatever you're holding. Your speed is 0 and can't change. Attack rolls have advantage. You automatically fail strength and dex saves. Any attack roll that hits you is a critical hit if the attacker is within 5 feet of you. You are unaware of your surroundings. All right. So in terms of the change log, there's nothing where I was like, whoa. I like how the stabilized rules have been changed to the whole, like, you just have a hit point, but you're unconscious. I think that's a little cleaner. In terms of some of the spells, I like how the smite spells have been reworked. Yeah, so for the most part, I see most of these changes as positive. In terms of the Druid and Paladin classes, I would love to play these alongside some of the other expert classes like Bard, Rogue, Ranger. It's not an expert, but Cleric. I think that it would do more than just having like a Druid and Paladin next to each other. So now I want to know what all of you think. Are you impressed with this new 1D&D UA? Are you outraged by the nerfs? Is 1D&D something you're going to support if other publishers than Wizards of the Coast create content for it, or like create their own systems with the SRD Creative Commons version of it? Are you going to buy the 2024 Player's Handbook, or are you done with D&D? I'd like to know all of those things in the comments down below. Thanks for sticking with me through this hour-and-a-half deep dive into the new Unearthed Arcana, and I hope you have an awesome day. Bye-bye now.